You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Born ready. Born ready.
Born ready. Hey. Oh, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining yet another Thursday evening series of live virtual studio visits and interviews. Tonight, we're so happy to have Courtney Childress. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Very nice to have
I'm
you.
I'm happy to be here.
Nice. So
Yeah.
this is Artfare. I'm Carolina Wheat. Forgot to introduce myself. We're still getting some folks admitted here into the Zoom, but it's been a snowy day in New York. How have you been taking it?
Great. I got to stay home all day. I work from home a couple days a week, so luckily that fell on today. So I got to work from the comfort of my kitchen and only went outside to shovel my car out of the snow this morning for an hour. We got like 8 inches here.
Oh, I was wondering what the city got. We were looking it up somewhere, and then we changed the conversation or whatever. I think we got about 11 up here in Newburgh.
Yeah.
I wonder what Wasaic got. I see Natalie's on right now, and she was doing her snow bunny thing today.
I know. I think she said they got over a foot at least, something like a foot and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're in the city right now, and are you in your studio right now, Courtney?
Yeah. I'm in Queens. I live out in Ridgewood.
Okay.
And have for a few years. I have a live workspace in Ridgewood and have for 5 years now. I love it. So we're actually in the middle of my studio is in the middle of my railroad apartment. So when I moved out here in the first place, my whole practice had to change a little bit. Instead of using spray paint and pouring resin and doing all this stuff when I had vent system, I had to switch gears majorly because
I can only imagine.
it's in the middle of my apartment and my cat runs through here. She will likely run in and out of the
Cameos.
I know, she's like a little streaker.
Kitten Streakers.
Kitten
Kind of
streakers.
band name. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. So this is my little studio.
Very cool. And so you've got the space here in Ridgewood.
Mm-hmm.
And so during quarantine, then you were, hog in heaven or whatever you want to say, like you had a setup.
I did. It was, I will say, with everything going on, it was really hard to make work for a few months or a couple months. It was nice to have all my tools and stuff, because I felt like I kind of dove into home projects and like organizing things and cleaning. And it was nice to have all my tools here. But aside from that, I was like, what's the point of art? A little bit. I had this as most people I think did. But I also make interactive sculpture. So for me, I was having a little bit of a crisis of conscience. I was like, am I really going to continue to make these works that don't feel like, not relevant, but they don't feel like they're pertinent right now, So I had to sit with that for quite a while. But in the end, I'm really happy that my studio is in my apartment. I got some momentum back after a while, and made a bunch of drawings on my floor, like canvassed the floor of my studio and made drawings, which was really rewarding when you're stuck inside a little space.
Right.
Yeah.
I know there's so much to kind of think about what you've just said in relationship to this of the 25 plus artists that I've interviewed since the lockdown for Artfare, all Artfare artists, and then some on my own time. I've learned that there was a lot of guilt / internal conflict, maybe is a more appropriate word, when it came to the making aspect or the practice of making work, and the kind of discord between is my work important? Is art important? And am I being selfish, or I'm putting words in my own,
Right. No, totally.
here, but just kind of this idea of whether or not it was, and everyone, and then June hit, right? And then like, there's people dying from COVID.
Yes.
There's, racial disparity, from, the systemic racism with the deaths, with disease.
Yep.
And then, the civil rights unrest, and
Right.
activism happened. And then it was like,
What am I doing? Why am I being so self-indulgent and making like brightly colored crayon art in my studio? But ultimately, I think it's an important thing. My work has such joy and tactility and humanness that's like a warm thing, and a generous warm thing. And so it was, I kind of I was like, no, this is an important thing you should do. You should do.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you emphasize the fact that your work is interactive, and absolutely, I remember knowing you in a different capacity prior to understanding your work when I saw it in spring break in 2019, or was it? No, it was 20.
That was this year, Carolina.
It was like, wait. So, and then I've seen you in booths before because you're a phenomenal curator as well, and gallery owner, and administrative professional, and all of these
my hats.
Arts of business of arts. Yeah, and I was like, wait, this is your work, Courtney? And I remember the joy and the pleasure I took from pushing the boulders across the carpet, and really seeing my own mark being made within the context of your work. And so for me, that relevance really fed into the interactive joy of your work. And in your little intro in Artfare, and like when I was writing, kind of compiling your bio up as an introduction for you for the promo, understanding a little better of the influence of the crayons and the story from your mother's road trip
childhood. Yeah. That's such a funny family story. And it actually, I was so the crayons originally came to pass from I taught elementary school art when I lived in Alabama after I graduated from undergrad. I took a couple of years off, and there was this amazing program called Kentuck in that part of Alabama, and they placed recent grads or people with BFAs in schools that didn't have budgets for arts departments, or arts teachers. So I taught elementary school art for 2 years, and there was so little money. I took whatever I could get. And this one teacher that I loved gave me 2 giant gallon Ziploc bags full of crayons, like the broken, like the grubby ones that the kids don't want. They're so nasty.
The paper's ripped off, and
the paper's right. They're like crayon, like all the colors are like on it. And I was like, great, you gave me a bunch of crayons that the kids don't want to use. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know how I'm going to get the kids to use them. So I never ended up using them in the school, but I carried them around with me for like, I want to say like 7 years before I did anything with them. Being a sculptor, you end up you're like a borderline hoarder no matter what. Like you just can't help but carry around all these things.
I think artists in general can be borderline hoarder. There's always potential energy, and
I know. And so I had these giant Ziploc bags, and I was like, okay. I had this like shit or get off the pot moment. I was like, you have to do something with these or get rid of them, like something. And so I was like, okay, how do I change them? How do I transform them? Okay, well, first I will peel them all. And so I peeled every single crayon, made them naked, separate. And then I was like, okay, in order to like further change this, I need to break this down by color so then I can transform it. So I sorted them by color. And then as I was doing all of this like really meditative, like quiet work, I remembered that story, the story that my mom and my aunt both told me this growing up. They were driving with my grandmother, just in case not everybody read it. I think it's a funny story. I'll tell it quick.
Yeah.
They're driving with my grandmother from Dallas to Colorado, and they had a rental convertible, a white convertible.
Wait, with vinyl white seats in the back too?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And so they're like not in the normal station wagon that they would have been in. And they stopped for lunch somewhere in Oklahoma in the middle of summer, and it's, you know, 1,000,000 degrees, and they left 2 buckets of crayons in the back seat. And when they came back, they were puddles, like buckets full of puddled crayon. And my mom, at this point in the story, my mom starts really laughing, and she's like, and we just reached into that bucket and grabbed handfuls of this crayon, and we're like throwing them out the window driving down the interstate. And I'm just like, oh, that's what I'm gonna make, fistfuls of crayon.
Nice.
Because I was like, this is what I like, that idea that I would then get to like have something that was a tool and a sculpture and changed over time and had this like literal ham-fistedness. Like that is the definition of ham-fisted to me. And I just thought it was so funny, and you know, it felt like the right thing to do with them. And I've been making them since. This was like, I think I found the first one I made, and it was 2013, 2014.
Oh, wow.
So I've been making these a long time.
Yeah. And they're do you have any in your studio right now? You can like,
yeah. Hold on.
livy up. Somehow I know one was on a chain that we were highlighting. That's from 2020. And then the blue rock one I've have an affinity for as well. I think some of that over there. Oh.
Okay, so I just made this one recently. It's very candy. It's like candy colors, but I've been making them on chains because I like to give people some sort of limit to the crayons themselves, because this is really lovely and super fun and like a great time, but it's also kind of rewarding to give people like the freedom to mark on something, but also give them some sort of boundary or restraint.
Yeah.
And it gives it, you know, it, in my mind, it connects to like Matthew Barney's drawing restraint. It connects to Carolee Schneeman's drawings, Silhouette, like all of these people that were making, drawing, and thinking about sort of parameters, and in Silhouette's case, like minimalism. And so I'm like making these like very intense interactive drawings, but in the end it's like a perfect circle because of the limit of the chain, or it's an arc because of the limit of the chain. So yeah, but they're pretty fun. I just made this one kind of recently, so it's very it's still very pointy and shiny.
Yeah, the idea of it being drawn on paper or carpet, which I remember.
Yeah.
Some of those instances, they help smooth the rock out almost as if a river rock or like water is being smoothed over the rock.
Yeah.
And yeah, that leads me to a question. It was like the purchase of one of these crayons is predominantly for, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone's use.
Yeah, ideally. I mean, somebody could buy one of these and put it on a pedestal and never touch it. That would be sad I would be sad for them, but also like to each his own. Like there's still something satisfying about the olfactory aspect of these. So maybe they just like the smell. Maybe they just want to look at it. And they're quite beautiful as objects in their own right. They're dynamic and gorgeous, but yeah, the point is to use them and to watch them change. And I'm still trying at this point to figure out how to document that in a way that feels worthwhile. It's, you know, it's a challenge that I feel like I've had conversations with artists over the years as a dealer, as a gallerist, that it's like, well, how do we represent that in images? And it's like thinking about how this will change from the moment of pulling it out of the mold and having my dear friend Josh Simpson photograph them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get used in an installation and they become totally different, do I rephotograph it? Like, you know,
Yes.
it's complicated. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. I would take it in stages and maybe set your own parameters. You say
Mm-hmm.
fresh out of the mold, and then you
Yeah.
say, after whatever parameters you choose, like 1 day's usage, 1 week usage, or whatever
Yeah.
the installation is, and kind of like set that time
Mm-hmm.
every Tuesday. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
4:44. I'm going to
Yeah.
take an image of this piece
Yeah.
in these confines, and then whether it's every Tuesday or the first Tuesday of the month or however
Mm-hmm.
you want to do that, then you can kind of see the progression, maybe even as a slow, as a, what is it called? It's slow crank, but no, it's called a time lapse. Now it's called a time.
Timeline.
I always
I
say
like slow. I like slow crank.
I always
I like slow
the Marx
crank.
Brothers, like do, 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 make it fast, but yeah, and I could see
Yeah.
it transition over time, almost as if a flower is, bending towards the light,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
withering
Yeah.
down of the actual object, and then
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it be so cool to see it become almost nothing, or these like smooth
Yeah.
river rock, like.
I mean, the work at Spring Break is it's so smooth. It's been like, because when they come out of the mold, they're very sharp almost. Like they
Yeah.
have, because I cast them in foil as one of the layers of the cast. And so they have this like real crispness and like a lot of facets, and they're real angular. And then
And they create really sharp lines, which I remember like trying to
for
move
like a second. But that's kind of the fun part about it too. It's like they're almost like a leveling tool in this way. Like when I was making them, I was thinking about kids a lot, and how when you're first learning to use a tool or like scissors, like kids are so ridiculous when they try and use scissors for the first time. You're like, why don't you get it? Just do it. And they're like, they can't make their hands do it. And it's so funny to watch adults like take this thing and then try and like draw their name, because it's like, they're hard to control, especially when they get big, like the giant boulders.
Yeah. It was like I'm in cross training again. Push this rice bag across the floor.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger one, when I first finished it, it's probably a different weight now. But when I first finished it, it was like 65 pounds, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a
a
lot of
big, that's a
crayons.
heavy thing.
How many crayons is that?
It's a little over 7,000 crayons.
Wow.
And I peeled every single one of them.
Oh my gosh. Do you have like crayons under your nails for days and days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really bad. It's like the blue ones are the worst, because then it's like I just have like blue nail beds.
And then
Yeah.
what happens to the shards of paper? Did you burn it, or you throw it away?
Whenever I've installed paper, I usually keep it, and that part isn't really, I won't say it's not the art, because it is, but it's less precious to me. I don't like some of the carpets from installs I've kept, some I've gotten rid of. Most of the canvas I keep because it's easy to hold on to and easy to roll up and store. But it's more about the engagement and like shaping of the objects and about people's interaction than it is about the final product, because like the carpet at spring break was just, oh, it was so gross. Well, it's just so, like, it got so saturated with crayon that when we pulled it up, Elliot pulled it up, I wasn't there, but he was like, it like rained crayon under it.
Oh, wow. So it had somehow porous.
Well, I mean, carpet's got holes in the bottom of it. So like like when you shake out a carpet or pull up a carpet, there's always like dust under it.
Yeah.
This is like crayon dust. So it was like all the colors of the rainbow.
Yeah, that was fun to clean up.
Yeah. Thanks, Elliot. Thanks, Elliot.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about the paper too, because of all of the kind of soft newsprint quality and that faded, muted tone. I was thinking how fun that would be for like a ticker tape parade or some sort of confetti.
Well, I mean, I just actually wrapped a bunch of Christmas presents in leftover paper from that I had done a crayon install from. I was like, oh, I'm gonna just use it wrapping. I don't have wrapping paper, so that's kind of the thing in my studio. I never throw anything away. Like I have all of the wrappers from the crayons. I have all of them.
So are you making pulp paper then? Because I'm imagining wrapping the paper with these shards of no. I mean,
oh no, I meant the like drawing. I meant like drawing paper. Like I've hung a sheet of paper and let people draw with it. No, the little shards I keep, and I will keep applying to Dieudonné until they let me in to their paper making residency. I'm just gonna hold on to them until they let me in, and then I'll make paper out of them that I can then draw on them with the crayons. It's like so perfect.
Potential energy. You are visualizing. You've got it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep saying. I mean, this is like I think I've applied every year to that for a million years, but maybe not. But the last 2 years I've been applying with this project in mind. And I'm like, someday y'all are going to let me in.
Yeah.
Someday,
that's right.
Someday you're going to let me in. It's going to happen.
It will happen.
Yeah.
And the work that you have hanging behind you, those are from a different series, not different series per se, but just a different actualization of working with wax.
Yeah.
And, well, talk about that a little.
These are both the one here closest to me is actually I lay down canvas on my table when I'm peeling the crayons, because little tiny bits of the crayon come off, and as I'm peeling, I use a heat gun and melt it into the canvas. So it's the little leftovers. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna give you close up.
Bring it on.
Let's see. Can you see it?
Yeah. Hold it still.
So it's like cosmos when you look at it real close. So that's connected. That's like directly connected to the crayons, because that's under it while I'm focusing on the big work. And then the more splotchy things behind me, this one's unstretched, but eventually it will get stretched. That's all the chunks that come off of it when I unmold them out of the mold.
Oh.
And so they're little, like, just because of the nature of foil, it will get like tucked between pieces, and then when I pull it out of the mold, little chunks break off, and so I use the heat gun and melt them in, and so these are all leftovers. So they're actually completely connected to the crayon works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This idea of remnants, the remnants of the paper peeling, the remnants of the cast in the foil. And then the remnants of crayons being used in their own mold.
Mm-hmm.
And then once again, the trail of remnants of the person's hand in
Yep.
action. I find it really intriguing to me, excuse me, that the carpets or the final product of the work is kind of that thing where it's like, should I keep this? Maybe it's oversaturated. It's too
Uh-huh.
wrought. It's,
Yeah.
of course, if you kept everything, it would be really
Mm-hmm.
challenging to. Um, did I lose you? It would be really
Sorry for
challenging
a second.
to make sure that there's storage enough to keep all those pieces.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, I keep plenty. I keep plenty. It would be nice if I could keep it all, but it's just not feasible. So the things that I keep that are important, like, um, this is something that I'm still kind of defining for myself, even after many years of working with this material, but having the community engagement and the works that, for instance, like I put up, leave installed for a long period of time, like the carpet for spring break, or I did a piece for Elsewhere where I chained
mm,
crayons to the wall, and they made they made really beautiful arcs in the carpet. I I didn't keep those because it
mhm.
was my work, but it wasn't. It's like I set it up for other people. I didn't make that. So in a way, I didn't feel like I had ownership of it. It wasn't mine necessarily. It was everybody's because they all made it. And like I said early on, I made these. I've been working on drawings on the floor of my studio, and those I keep and document as paintings because they are for me, like, because they're predominantly made by me. People come to my studio and um, mark on the floor with me, but for the most part, I'm the one engaging with it and drawing and um, practicing yoga in here and like walking through it and, you know, marinating on it while I'm here, while I'm sitting here. And so those feel like mine, if that makes sense. But, I still haven't totally defined all of these. I also make up rules for myself that I change all the time.
For sure. Well, I mean, the rules are meant to be broken. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Kindergarten.
one of the best parts is like, make the rule. And then I'm like, nah,
It
I don't
feels
like that rule.
so good to break rules. When I mean, that's why, it's kind of this idea of a creative breakthrough where you are
True.
outside of what you normally would be, investigating and making, and then you're creating, and then you just broke the mold, I mean,
Yeah.
I think your contemplation and self-reflection when it comes to the objects themselves that other people make from the objects you make,
Mm-hmm.
that you it's a vehicle. It's kind of
Yep.
like how I always joke around about the tortilla chip being
Uh-huh.
the vehicle for the salsa in my mouth,
Yes. Yes.
not so much the chip. Like I could do without the
Sure.
chip, but I really
You're
want the
like, but
salsa.
are you gonna just sit there with a spoon? No, probably
I'm not
not.
I'm not gonna do that. But like the salsa is like what people are trying to get to,
Yeah.
in terms of your work is a salsa or whatever. I know this is such a silly, crazy thing. I must
I
be
love this
hungry.
analogy.
But
I
analogy.
love it.
But like if the carpet is the tortilla chip, then like I know it's like cardboard, maybe sometimes it may
Mhm.
be, non-GMO, GMO, all these
Yeah.
things. But the fact remains, it is an object that has been created with your hands
Yeah.
still in the the premonitory like vision of the object. And it, I'm not going to belabor this idea too much more,
No, that's okay.
but it's, for instance, like the Gordon Meta Clark garbage wall. He designed the garbage wall. He wanted that to become, the socially active practice, to become a homeless shelter for homeless people out of the things that were around in the 70s. But every time, and many of you are on this call know, and I know, Courtney, that I worked with the estate and helping to build the garbage wall, but I'm helping build the garbage wall, but it's still his wall, right? Always different. And it's always got garbage that's relevant to the city that it's being built in. So I love the idea of thinking that these carpets or whatever the mark making is happening with the people in that area, it's kind of like a time capsule. And as I was getting at prior, like having this enough storage to be able to, push kind of the importance, but also the value in them. And that is a really challenging thing to think about, because, you're just the vehicle to making that expression for those people at that time. But I feel it's very valid. I think my main point is like, it's still very important.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, they're very important things. But I see this being a part of my career for indefinitely, and it would be virtually impossible to hold on to all of them. I
totally understand. It's impractical. I get
it's impractical, but I do keep a lot. Remember earlier, borderline hoarder. I do keep a lot. So yeah, there's still many present, and I document really carefully everything. So I have all of that and where they've been, and
then it kind of becomes the piece then, right?
Yeah, it's an important part of it. It's an important part of it. Yeah. So, I mean, just with anybody who makes things that aren't super traditional, like easy to store, easy to shoot, easy to sell, I'm in that bubble of it's really hard to document, it's really hard to store. it's not easy to sell, because they're interesting, they're they're really interesting pieces, the rock crayons themselves, and it's not the easiest thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah, with the emphasis on engagement, as you said, it would be sad if someone didn't really use this. That's stuck home.
I mean, that's their prerogative. They can do what they want to do, but yeah, I would hope that they would use them. Maybe if somebody buys it and doesn't want to use it, I'll like go to their house and scribble on something.
Oh, and then the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah. I have a friend, I gave one of these to a friend of mine with two little girls. We traded, he's an artist, he traded me a print for one of the crayons, and I got this great photo maybe last year around this time of teeth marks just like in the crayon. And it was just like, if you ever want Rona to come over and chomp on one of your boulders, let us know. She's down, because she like chomped into this crayon, and it's kind of perfect. Yeah.
I do what I want.
Yeah, that was it. But it was great. I mean, she did whatever she wanted with. She was gonna do it, and good thing they're non-toxic.
Good thing. I mean that I query, like, the crayons, they come in a lot of colors, a lot of different types of color combinations, as we all know. And I wonder, do you ever get commissions?
I haven't yet. I have had a couple of well, I had a friend make a great suggestion a couple of years ago that she was like, if you ever want to make a grayscale one, hit me up.
Oh, I saw that grayscale on Artfare recently.
Yeah, and that was the second grayscale one I had made. I had made a smaller version for this friend of mine because she
Oh,
requested it.
yeah.
And I was a little reticent at first. I was like, I mean, the thing is, these are about joy and color, and they are for me so much about color theory.
Mhm.
I am when I'm melting the layers and planning, I don't plan too far in advance, but from one color to the next, I'm thinking about how they're going to make marks, how it's going to respond from one layer to another. And so I was like, wow, that seems dull or something, like it's not going to do much. And then I made one because I was like, okay, I'll just give it a shot. And
Mhm.
it's one of my favorite things. Like they're so beautiful, and they make this almost soft, like soft charcoal, like vine charcoal. That's what it looks like when you draw with
Oh,
one of the grayscale ones. It's a beautiful mark, and they're very subtle, and would be amazing for figure drawing. Like figure drawing would be great with this, I think, in my mind. But yeah, that's the only sort of like suggestion or commission I've ever received. It makes me, I'm probably going to end up doing some like monochrome ones, because
monochrome.
yeah, I think it'd be really nice to have like an all blue one.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I
Right,
was thinking.
right.
uh, it feels like as if the drawing would even, as you were mentioning, like the grayscale one brings like a fine charcoal game to the play,
Yeah,
yet the monochrome would also bring a new game to the finished product, right? It may feel
totally.
less visually kind of overwhelming,
Yeah,
and more controlled.
yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. When I installed at Elsewhere, I installed one full wall of carpet, or two full walls of carpet, and on one wall I hung a monochrome grayscale crayon in the middle, and then two color ones like a few feet apart. So they had overlapping arcs, but the center was black and white, or black and gray, and then the rest of it was color. And it was really the contrast between those two things was really amazing in that iteration.
Yeah, and then therefore, again, going back to that control, you were
Mm-hmm.
able, as the artist and the visionary, to
Mm-hmm.
successfully display the parameters of the work that will be made.
Yeah,
So in a way,
totally.
you're more heavy-handed with
Mm-hmm.
that control.
Yeah,
That sounds
yeah.
fantastic.
I'm also letting people have a lot of freedom. I can't tell you how many dicks and boobs were drawn on that piece. It was so funny. It was like, well, I mean, that's what I expected. Like, you put something up like that, and like adults of any age are going to be like, butt. And you're like, okay, okay, yeah, of course you're going to draw a butt, like. And then it was really funny though. It was like somebody drew a penis, and then I made it into a turtle. And then, there's this conversation that happens in these drawings that are really great too, that if you're there and watching it happen is so good. It's like, you know, it's just like fun to watch people turn into small children when they do it. Like, that's
Well,
what
isn't that,
happens. We all turn
I
into
mean, it
kids.
seems so appropriate, Courtney. You're dealing with crayons, large crayons.
Mhm.
And then, that alone is, perfect, 4-page paper you could write about. But like the
Totally.
yeah, that is really magnificent once given the opportunity to do something, then folks, kind of take the liberty to, I wonder though, are there any messages, or are there any moments of non-drawing? Are people ever doing text? Like I know maybe like
Yeah.
C+L, forever, true love always kind of stuff maybe.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, are there, what were, or have there been any kind of for a good time call, or like Black Lives Matter, not to joke around at all, but just like
Yeah,
any
no.
messages inside the
I
inside the
mean, my my I have a new canvas down on the floor in the studio right now. I just pulled up the last one and had Josh, my friend, document it, and I put a fresh one down, and my friend's kids came over, masked, but they came over, and they were like, one of them wrote, Sarah and Tyler from Mrs. Gallery. Their daughter was over. Yeah, Zuzu. And so I have something on my floor that says Zuzu was here. It's right next to me. And like my very adult friend, Derek, at spring break, the evening of the opening, he got down into the carpet and like scrubbed his name into it, like as bold as possible. And he came back an hour later and it was almost gone, because people just like, there's something about this material that's like leveling or something. Like when you mark it, like the other marks just sort of absorb in, and it's this really strange effect. And he came back an hour later and his name was almost gone. And so he like did it again and scrubbed it in again. And I was like, dude, it's not gonna work. Like that's gone, man. It's like, and you just set somebody up. You just asked for somebody to come in and scratch your name out. It's like graffiti. Like, if like on a bathroom wall, like you're like, Courtney's an asshole. Like I would come in and be like, Courtney's the best, like.
Well, yeah, I mean, just kind of a little bit of a rabbit hole, but that graffiti aspect does, allow for makers and non-makers alike to take the liberty to either destroy someone's property or enhance someone's property, whether or not they had permission. But you're offering permission, and therefore the dicks and the tits just part of the game.
It's part of it. You're asking for it. I mean, that's what's there. And it's totally fine. It's like, it's great. It's part of it. And, I love all that. I think it's like, it's part of why I give people the opportunity to draw and make marks and do what they want, because you don't get that chance. You don't get to engage with art like that. Like when you go to see a show, you don't get to make art too. And you don't get to touch it. Like I want people to touch it.
You're right. I mean, unless you're the artist, of course. But and even then, I have a funny story, but maybe it's too much to name the names. But my friend worked at this high-end gallery where the artist was working in the gallery to present the work for the show that was going to be photographed. And so the gallery became the studio for this artist, and the artist finished the work. The work was hanging on the wall, and this particular artist doesn't really frame everything, especially when it's a large scale drawing show. And this said artist comes in and overnight and just starts mark making all over their own work after all of the documentation had already been done. I know. And so then you got to get the cameras out again. Then you got to do all of the, then you got to recreate the inventory. I know, as an administrator with that registrarial beast.
Oh my God.
What would happen. And also some of the work had already been sold based on the images. And anyway, it's a fun story for another day with glass of wine and ham, but it was quite a problem. But the
Yeah,
artists felt that they had every right to go in and like there's things that this need to be fixed, that need to be fixed.
that's giving me like a heart palpitation just thinking about it from the other end,
From the other
especially like if work was sold, if it had been like sent to press, or yeah, it's like
already.
a literal nightmare.
Yeah. I mean,
I think I've had that
opened yet.
nightmare.
The show hadn't opened yet, so I think they had like 24 to 48 hours to like redo all the inventory, reshoot everything, and let the collectors know that there has been
Changes.
additional mark making on the work. Hopefully, you're still into it. But it is what it is. They handle it big, you know. They handle it. They had good people working for them. Patient folks that know that artists, you know, they sometimes make changes to their work, and
Amen.
you know, sometimes you need to hang something 1 centimeter higher after 20 pieces have just been installed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I've been there, done that. It's like, well, could it be lower? And you're like, all of them? You said it now? We could have done that 20 pieces ago. Oh yeah. I mean, but that's the thing, like as somebody who is an artist and has been in the gallery, on the gallery side of things for so long, or working for artists, which I've been doing the last few years, it's always like, yeah, I get it. Of course that's what you want. Like, we'll do it, because ultimately it's about what the artist sees. And I don't know, like I've had the experience of like talking to a lot of artists and having them tell me that dealers or gallerists like put things on them, like, oh well, could you make it bluer, or could you make it bigger, or could you make it smaller, or blah 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 blah. And I've never in my life told an artist like, don't, maybe do it different, you know, because it's just like, it is what comes out of your head. And yeah, if it needs to be a centimeter to the left or up, fine, like that's what it needs to be, you know. And that's how it should be.
I think you and I think similarly in that respect, where I want the artist to be happy. I'm just 100% want the artist to be happy. If it's doable, if it's possible, there's no time or energy that would inhibit me from, you know, ensuring that the artist is happy. There is sometimes though reality that has to come into play.
Well, yeah, of course. That's, you know, reality is a whole different beast.
There's things that yes would be better this way. Wish we would have thought about it a week ago. Let's do this now, and we'll, you know, like figure out a creative solution to, you know, like, and whether how important it is or whatever the case. And a lot of things I'm talking about is mostly just installation based. You know, it's kind of
it's like, no, we can't actually drop the seal. Like, no, we can't raise the ceiling of the gallery. It's like, that's not possible.
Thank you.
It's the night before the opening. No, we can't paint the floor a different color. Like,
it happens.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I have, like, the thing is, like, I have dropped a ceiling in a gallery for an artist before. Like, we installed a drop ceiling on Stellar Rays in our first space on Orchard Street for Maria Pechnig for, I mean, we also like added a bunch of walls to the space. She built out this like crazy environment, and it was for video. It's for video work. So it really did matter, like, the environment in which it was shown in. And I mean, more power to her. Like, but we also knew that was coming like months in advance, because Maria's Austrian, and she told us like a year before we did it that we were going to do it. So I was like, okay.
Well, then you have a fair, you know, warning.
Yes, we had plenty of notice. It wasn't a surprise when we installed a drop ceiling. But yeah, I've definitely had some funny requests at the last minute, and I'm like, no, we can't move that. There's a heating element behind it. Like that wall doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
but it also, as an artist, I trust give you a better understanding of what is possible, and say you
for
are
sure.
working with a dealer or you're thinking about an installation. um, I suppose I'm just speaking on both sides of my mouth right now, because I know that I, as a gallerist, and having and working very closely with an artist in a studio,
Mhm.
and also many other artists, um, I know like what a decent gallery does, or like
Yeah, that's true.
what I would want if I was an artist, what I would want in a gallery,
Yeah,
and those are the types of things as an artist that it's kind of like this nice two-way street where you say, I've been there. If we can
yeah,
do this, that would be great. I
yeah,
mean, there's this level of
totally.
gratitude and understanding and appreciation that really helps elevate the conversation, and create a more harmonious relationship. I don't know exactly where I'm going with it, but it's mostly just a testament to you making work, being a curator, having been a gallerist, continuing, on the path of professional practices with the Ninth Street Collective, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah. Oh, that's been so rewarding. We're coming up on our third year with Ninth Street, and it's been amazing because one of my favorite things, or I mean, one of the beauties of being in the position that I am as an artist and as somebody that's been on the other side of things, on the administrative side of things, on the dealer side of things, is that I understand the business in a way that it's not taught in school. And this has been
Right.
one of my soapboxes since,
Yeah.
I mean, since the beginning of my time as a dealer. Is like, why aren't they teaching artists how to be professionals in school? It makes me so mad. Um,
Yeah. And
and
we talked about this a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent years helping my friends, like reading consignment agreements or helping them rewrite their statements or helping them to understand what a CV is supposed to look like. Like
Right.
none of that is taught. Like even how to have a conversation with a gallerist, like
Right.
it's absurd how little of that is expressed in education. Like that should be taught to BFAs, like that should be taught to bachelors. And so with Night Street, it's been amazing because not only we've been doing workshops where we focus in on a topic, like I have one where I talk about artwork pricing. And
Yes.
that is such an opaque
It is.
thing that most artists don't understand. And they're so emotional about it. And I'm like, nope, we can't. This is not something you get to charge. You can't charge $400 more for that one because you like it better. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
It just has to be NFS if you don't want to sell it.
Right.
Like
Right.
stuff like that I've like that people don't understand until they've been around or they have somebody like me in their life that explains it to them or talks to them about it. And so Night Street has been amazing because not only have I been doing like individual um, work with people one-on-one, but I can do workshops and they're pretty cost effective and makes it so a lot of people can get a lot of like a chunk of information all at once.
Yeah, it's
It's been great.
accessible, and
Yeah,
yeah, and it's so needed, and so is a professional practice course in at the undergraduate level. Yes.
I know.
Yet I just don't think that there's folks out there that are actively, not to be so downtrodden, but are actively interested in helping artists, you know, create gallery shows, there's always, or there's already this misnomer of like, yeah, good luck, kid. You're going to make it in the arts. Let's see, you're going to be in a commercial design firm. You're going to do consignment-based work. You're going to do, graphic design. All of that is fine and good. I mean, a lot of us make our money in you know, the certain ways of the consignment in the creative industries. Yet just a little things like, this is the thing I always complain about. Don't use D-rings on your expensive frame. That's like the meanest thing to do to an art handler. I mean, it's not the meanest. It's just like,
make a cleat. It's
yeah.
like, cleat it.
What is a cleat? I don't even know if folks know what a cleat is when they get out of college at the undergraduate level, until they have to hang up their BFA show, and then how they frame it, if they frame it, if it needs to be framed. That is how to price your work and include the cost of the frame so you get your money back. Or like cleating versus D-rings, or a wire. Don't put a wire on the back of your anything. Makes me want to throw stuff. There's just all this little stuff that, like, if you're having to do that, if you're having to like, then Jen's backing me up back here. She's like, no wires, never wires. But like, if you're the one like at midnight before the preview, like hanging the booth, and somebody has done a dumb thing, like put the D-rings on and they're all at different heights, you want to scream. I want to throw stuff. You know, like, it can be so painful. And so like, when you're in that position and you know all this stuff, like my friends have had to listen to me like get up on my soapbox about one thing or another over and over again. And it's they're like, can you stop talking about frames or whatever, you know, like how my CV is formatted poorly. I'm like, well, those are some things that you just need to, and the pricing thing is, I mean, I mean, when I first started running the gallery, I was, you know, I was looking at some books, like how to do this, how to run a commercial gallery, how to do that. And it's also subjective. It's all based on, you know, like, you know, some vanity projects. I remember, we could talk about this till the cows come home. But then there were just certain things about the only book, and one of the thinnest books there is, it's called How to Price Your Work. I think I have it somewhere. I'll look at it later, and I can't even remember who wrote it, because I was looking at it, it's hogwash, because there is no formula, there is no real rubrics. There's just this, you know, fluctuating art market that's not even as obvious as the NASDAQ, or, you know, like.
I mean, the art world is it's like one of the last unregulated markets. So it's like, because I say this Richard Tuttle is worth 2.5 million, it is, you know, because of his history and his, you know, the provenance of this piece and all these other details that define the price point of something. And there isn't a rubric, but there are criteria that you can use to determine your own price point. And it's like, I literally have an hour-long workshop where I talk about this, and it helps at least give people a sense of like where they should situate themselves, and like do's and don'ts, like really important things about prices. Like, once you set a price, you can't go backwards. Like, that's such a simple thing. Most people are like, I don't understand it. And you're like, well, you can't drop the price of a piece.
That was one of the things I was like, and also with additions, I'm like, once you decide there's going to be additions, once you say, and
that's as many as you get,
edition is sold, you cannot go back on once it's printed, you know. And then that emotional pricing too, the NFS versus, you know, going to pay more for something. It is very difficult to understand, yet, I mean, there are tricks of the trade, right? You kind of like get a better idea of the value of something, but you could be you could be all mathematical about it. Remember, just trying to figure out production costs for something in relationship
Yeah.
to like the time and energy that this artist
Yeah.
took to make the work, but then I calculated student loans and as well as the amount of years that, they had been making the work in relationship to the amount of, because
Wow.
so then your per hour is this, and then the actual per inch is this much for production.
Uh-huh.
They were asking for it. I didn't know how else to do it. Like I can not just like throw things out in the wind. So I created this algebraic equation. This again, we can go down a rabbit hole, but when it comes to understanding the rubrics of pricing, it really is, the market is such a wild thing. And of course, cash is king, and anyone
Yeah.
wants to stash some cash or
And it's also about like, I mean, I'm going to use Elliot as an example, Elliot Greenwald as an example, because he's somebody I worked with like really early in his career for spring break a few years ago, 3 years ago.
yeah.
I showed his work and he had made these amazing facsimile VHS tapes.
Loved them.
I know, they're so good. And
So
like
good.
each one of those, because like it's like canvas wrapped in gesso, like with gesso over a block, and then each one is hand painted. And he's like, well, those take me about 7 hours a piece and my hourly rate is X. And I'm like, that is not how we can price. Like,
Yep.
if you want to price this tiny video VHS tape for $750 and you've never had a solo show in New York, nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I was like, we need to make them like $200 or like $250 each. And we sold half of them and they went to amazing collections. Like major people bought this work. And I was like, if they had walked into the booth and saw that those were $700, like Beth Woody would have turned around and been like, yeah, but I mean, there's no basis for this.
Yeah.
But instead she bought 10.
Oh, that's amazing.
And now he's in really important collections, and now his price point can be higher.
That's
because he's in Beth DeWitty's collection, he's in Progressive Insurance's collection, he's in a bunch of more private people's collections that are good. And it's like, and now Elliot can charge more.
That's right.
Because that's how it goes.
Gotta start.
Yeah.
Can you believe that our hour is already over? We're 2 minutes over.
Oh my God. I can't believe it. I knew it was gonna fly by.
Flies by. Oh, Courtney, it's just so wonderful to have you. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. And we do this offline, off the recording soon.
Yeah.
I love talking about your work. I love thinking about the future of your work and where it's going to go. So I really appreciate everyone being here tonight.
Yes, thank you so much.
Definitely. I know we've got a couple weeks on hiatus because Thursday, the next 2 weeks are formally some holiday period time. Happy solstice, everyone.
Yes. Happy solstice.
And really look forward to seeing you in January with some awesome artists, Artfare artists. And Courtney, I hope I'm seeing you really soon.
I would love that. It was so wonderful. Thank you so much. You're a great interviewer.
Oh, thank you. It's like, the cat's in the bag, but I really love doing it.
I can tell. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye.